Dear students, today we are going to talk about adrenergic pharmacology. You know that the autonomic pharmacology has two parts. One is the cholinergic pharmacology and another is the adrenergic pharmacology. So what are we going to learn today? We are going to learn about the very basics of adrenergic pharmacology. We are not going to talk about the drugs in details, but instead we are going to look at the very basic things like the receptors and the neurotransmitters in this lecture. Okay, so our class consists of catecholamines, their structure, their synthesis, transmission and metabolism, and the adrenergic receptors. So let's get into details of these things. So adrenergic pharmacology is actually noradrenergic pharmacology. Why is that? Because the primary neurotransmitter is noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and epinephrine is mainly a hormone which comes from the adrenal medulla. So the primary neurotransmitter is noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and epinephrine is not the main neurotransmitter. This is mainly a hormone which comes from the adrenal medulla. Okay, now what is a catecholamine? You will hear this name over and over again in adrenergic pharmacology. So what is a catecholamine? Actually, the neurotransmitters of the adrenergic system, they carry a same chemical structure or similar chemical structure, and that chemical structure is called catecholamine. For that reason, the group of neurotransmitters in autonomic nervous system are called catecholamines, and all the related substances that contain this chemical structure, this specific chemical structure, are called catecholamine. Okay, so you can see that neurotransmitters of the adrenergic system are called catecholamines according to their chemical structure. And according to their chemical structure, drugs acting on the adrenergic system can be catecholamines and non-catecholamines. Okay, so what is that structure which we are referring to over and over again? Let's look at the chemical structure. The structure of a catecholamine consists of a catechol ring. A catechol ring is very important, and there is an ethyl group and there is an amine group. So let's look at the structure. Okay, so what is a catechol ring? 3,4-dihydroxybenzene. Okay, you can see this is the benzene ring. Okay, and there is two hydroxyl groups attached to its third and fourth carbon position. This one is the first carbon position, second carbon position, and at third carbon position here is a hydroxyl group, and at the fourth carbon position there is another hydroxyl group. So 3,4-dihydroxybenzene is called a catechol ring. Okay, and with this you can see there is an attachment of an ethyl group. Okay, so this is the ethyl group, and there is an amine group attached to that ethyl group. So you can see three things here: a catechol ring, this is a catechol ring, then an ethyl group, and along with that ethyl group there is an amine group. So this structure is called catechol ethyl amine. Catechol ethyl amine is in short called catecholamine. So this is the simplest catecholamine, which is called dopamine. This is the structure of dopamine. So let's look at the catecholamines. what are the catecholamines in our body? That means endogenous catecholamines. These catecholamines are produced within our body. So these catecholamines are norepinephrine, then epinephrine and dopamine. Okay, and dopamine. So the structure of dopamine I have shown you already. So let's look at the structure of epinephrine. The structure of epinephrine consists a catechol ring, which you can see here. This is the catechol ring. Then the ethyl group. Here is the ethyl group. But the difference is a hydroxyl group is attached to this ethyl group. So this is the only difference between the dopamine and the norepinephrine. Okay, so a hydroxyl group is attached to the ethyl group. So this is norepinephrine. And let's look at the structure of epinephrine. So epinephrine, of course, it will contain a catechol ring. This is the catechol ring, and then it contains the ethyl group, this ethyl group, and of course that hydroxyl group is attached to it. That will contain the amine group, and amine group will contain a methyl group with it. Okay, a methyl group will be associated. So this is the structure of epinephrine, and let's look at the structure of isoproterenol, which is a synthetic catecholamine. So isoproterenol is a synthetic catecholamine which is not synthesized within our body. This is a drug which is produced in the lab. Okay, so let's look at the structure of isoproterenol. Isoproterenol has this catechol ring, of course, and this ethyl group. This is the ethyl group, and of course this hydroxyl group is attached here. And then we can see the difference between epinephrine and isoproterenol is this extra methyl group. So as the catecholamines will get complex, they will have an extra methyl group with them. So an extra methyl group will be the only change between a catecholamine and its next complex catecholamine. Okay, so as the complexity will increase, these structures will have one more methyl group. Okay, so you can see this structure. Now let's go to the synthesis of catecholamines, which is very important for your exam. To learn the synthesis of catecholamines, you don't need to memorize all the points written here. You can see that a lot of points are written here. You have to remember just this figure. Okay, by remembering this figure, by learning this figure, you can learn the synthesis of catecholamine and their release, their transmission, their metabolism, everything very clearly from this picture. Okay, so let's see the raw material. The only raw material for the synthesis of catecholamines, let's say norepinephrine, because norepinephrine is the neurotransmitter of the adrenergic system. So we will talk about the synthesis of norepinephrine. So tyrosine is the raw material of norepinephrine synthesis. What is the tyrosine? Tyrosine is a non-essential amino acid. That means this amino acid can come from diet as well as this is synthesized within our body. So tyrosine comes to the presynaptic nerve terminal by an active transport process, okay, and tyrosine is converted into DOPA. Okay, tyrosine is converted into DOPA by the enzyme tyrosine hydroxylase. So tyrosine comes into the presynaptic nerve terminal and it is converted into DOPA by tyrosine hydroxylase enzyme. Okay, then this DOPA is converted into dopamine. DOPA is converted into dopamine by the enzyme DOPA decarboxylase. This enzyme converts DOPA into dopamine. Then dopamine comes into the vesicle. This is the vesicle within the presynaptic nerve terminal. So DOPA is converted into dopamine by DOPA decarboxylase and then it enters into the vesicle of the presynaptic nerve ending. Then dopamine within the vesicle, dopamine is converted into norepinephrine, which is our neurotransmitter, by the help of the enzyme beta hydroxylase. Okay, so in this way norepinephrine is synthesized. Now here I want to mention one thing, that epinephrine is not synthesized within the presynaptic nerve ending. Epinephrine is synthesized in the adrenal medulla because the synthesis of epinephrine from norepinephrine requires an enzyme which is not present within the presynaptic nerve ending. So let's see here that in adrenal medullary cells, norepinephrine is converted into epinephrine by N-methyl transferase, and this N-methyl transferase is not present within the presynaptic nerve terminal. So you can see in this picture, N-methyl transferase is not present. So epinephrine cannot be synthesized within the presynaptic nerve terminal. Okay, so after synthesis of norepinephrine, this norepinephrine should be released. How norepinephrine is released? As we have discussed about the general principles of neurotransmitters, that neurotransmitters are released by a process, a general process, and that process applies to the transmission of norepinephrine as well. So if I briefly recap this thing here, then I should say that action potential comes along the axonal membrane of presynaptic nerve, and that causes opening of calcium channels. Here there are some calcium channels, and these calcium channels will open and lead to influx of a lot of calcium ions, and influx of calcium ions will lead to, these calcium channels will lead to fusion of this vesicle with this membrane. Okay, this vesicle will get fused with this like this. Okay, and then norepinephrine, that means the neurotransmitter, will be released. Okay, so this is the process, this is the same process we have learned earlier. Okay, so after being released in the synaptic cleft, this is the synaptic cleft. After being released in the synaptic cleft, norepinephrine then will go either to alpha receptors or to beta receptors and will have its function. Okay, now you can see another receptor here, that is alpha 2 receptor, this receptor. And what is this receptor doing here? We know that the receptors are usually located in the postsynaptic membrane. This is this is the postsynaptic membrane, and the receptors are located here, alpha receptor and beta receptor. But this alpha 2 receptor is located in the presynaptic nerve ending, because this is an autoreceptor. Autoreceptors are present in the presynaptic nerve ending. And what is this alpha 2 receptor doing here? This alpha 2 receptor is giving negative feedback to this norepinephrine. Okay, so norepinephrine will not be released if this alpha 2 receptor is activated. So alpha 2 receptors will give negative feedback to the release of norepinephrine. Okay, now once norepinephrine has performed its function here, okay, it has bound with its receptor and it has performed its function, then what will happen? Then most of the neurotransmitters, that means most of the norepinephrine, will be reuptaken within the presynaptic nerve terminal. So you can see that this norepinephrine is taken up into the presynaptic nerve ending by norepinephrine sodium cotransport mechanism. So this transporter, this is the transporter, norepinephrine sodium cotransporter. This takes norepinephrine within the cytoplasm of the presynaptic nerve ending. Okay, so from presynaptic cytoplasm, from here you can see, from here this norepinephrine should be taken up into the vesicle, because vesicle is the storage site of norepinephrine. Okay, so here is another transporter. Here is another transporter, that is norepinephrine proton counter transport mechanism. So through this transporter, norepinephrine gets back into the vesicle, its original storage site. So in this way, most of the norepinephrine is reuptaken, and some of the norepinephrine, okay, this get diffused into the surrounding tissues and surrounding environment. Okay, some of the norepinephrine get diffused and gets destroyed. So this is in short about the norepinephrine synthesis, storage, their release and reuptake. Okay, so you can see this point. You can pause the video here and you can have a look at these points as I have described the points here in simple language. Okay? Then storage of catecholamines and release of catecholamines, and you can also pause the video here and have a look at these things. And then uptake of catecholamines, I have already talked about these things. And now come to the metabolism of catecholamines. Okay, so let's look at another picture, the same picture which I have already discussed, but with a few addition. Okay, you can see that norepinephrine, some of the norepinephrine, I have told you already, that gets diffused into the surrounding tissue and gets metabolized. Gets metabolized by which enzyme? This enzyme, that is catechol O-methyl transferase. That norepinephrine can diffuse into plasma as well, or into some other tissues like liver. Okay, so or any other tissue, and this is metabolized by catechol O-methyl transferase. Okay, now norepinephrine is taken up by this sodium norepinephrine cotransport, this cotransport, and this can be blocked by cocaine and diazepamine. So these things can block the reuptake of norepinephrine into the axonal cytoplasm. Okay, so this can block this pathway. This pathway is blocked. This pathway is blocked by cocaine and desipramine. So what happens? Norepinephrine concentration here norepinephrine concentration increases, so norepinephrine action also increases. Now there is another thing. After reuptake of norepinephrine within the cytoplasm of axonal nerve terminal, okay, so here this norepinephrine can be attacked and destroyed by monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So monoamine oxidase inhibitors are present within the presynaptic nerve terminal, and as soon as norepinephrine is reuptaken here, this monoamine oxidase inhibitors will attack this norepinephrine and will try to break it down. Okay, and this is not the end of the sufferings of norepinephrine, because norepinephrine reuptake into the vesicle, okay, which is carried out by norepinephrine proton counter transport mechanism, can be blocked by reserpine. Okay, so reserpine can block this one, and it can increase the norepinephrine here. It blocks the entry of norepinephrine into the vesicle, so norepinephrine remains within the cytoplasm, and norepinephrine becomes very much prone to be attacked by monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and norepinephrine can get destroyed. Okay, so these are some drugs which act on on different levels of norepinephrine synthesis, release and reuptake. So what are the catecholamine metabolizing enzymes? So we have talked about two important enzymes. One is catechol O-methyl transferase and another is monoamine oxidase. So catechol O-methyl transferase can break down norepinephrine, can metabolize norepinephrine in the peripheral tissues, and monoamine oxidase can break down norepinephrine within the presynaptic nerve terminal. Okay, so what is the end product of metabolism of norepinephrine? The end product is VMA, that is vanillyl mandelic acid. Okay, so let's look at here. Okay, so monoamine oxidase and catechol O-methyl transferase. One thing I want to correct here, make it correct. This is not monoamine oxidase inhibitor. This is actually monoamine oxidase. This enzyme is called monoamine oxidase. So beg your pardon. This is monoamine oxidase. Now, vanillyl mandelic acid is the end product of norepinephrine metabolism, and these metabolites usually conjugate with glucuronate or sulfate and ultimately excreted in urine. Now come to the adrenergic receptors. What are the adrenergic receptors? There are two types of adrenergic receptors. One is alpha and the other one is beta. And the alpha receptors are subdivided into alpha 1 and alpha 2, and the beta receptors are subdivided into beta 1, 2 and 3. And remember one thing, all of the adrenergic receptors are G protein coupled receptors. So all of the Adrenergic receptors are G protein coupled receptors. Now let's look at the alpha receptors. These are alpha 1 receptors and alpha 2 receptors. Alpha 1 receptors are located in the postsynaptic effector organs, and alpha 2 receptors are located, as I have mentioned already, that is on the presynaptic nerve membrane. Okay, and it is also located on pancreatic beta cells and platelets. Now what are their functions? Functions of alpha 1 adrenergic receptor, that is it is present on genitourinary smooth muscle and causes contraction. It causes vasoconstriction because it is present in blood vessels. Then it causes glandular secretion, causes gut relaxation. In liver it causes glycogenolysis, okay, breaks down the glycogen and increases the blood sugar level. Then on heart it may cause arrhythmia. And what are the function of alpha 2 receptor? It inhibits neurotransmitter release, as we have talked about, that it inhibits norepinephrine release. Then it decreases the central sympathetic outflow, decreases insulin release because it acts on the pancreatic beta cells, decreases insulin release, and on platelets it causes platelet aggregation. And alpha 1 receptors are GQ coupled receptors and alpha 2 are G inhibitory receptors. Okay, now selective agonists and antagonists, you can have a look at those things, but we will talk about the agonist and antagonist in details in the next lecture. Okay, now let's talk about the beta receptors. There are 3 receptors: beta 1, beta 2 and beta 3. Beta 1 is located in heart and located in the juxtaglomerular cells in kidney, and beta 2 receptors are present on bronchi, blood vessels, liver, GIT, urinary tract and eye, and beta 3 receptors are only present in the adipose tissue. Beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, these all are G stimulatory receptors. Okay, and affinity for neurotransmitter. Beta 1 receptors have more affinity for epinephrine than norepinephrine. Beta 2 has more affinity for epinephrine and very less for norepinephrine. Okay, and beta 3, of course, it has more norepinephrine affinity than epinephrine affinity. And the selective agonist and antagonist, we will talk about these things later. Now come to the receptor selectivity. This is very important. Okay, epinephrine has affinity for alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1 and beta 2, and the affinity, the strength of affinity is almost same for all of these receptors. Alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2 binds almost with similar strength with epinephrine. Okay, but for norepinephrine the story is a little bit different. Norepinephrine has affinity for alpha 1, alpha 2 and beta 1 and beta 3 also, but beta 3 is a less important receptor in respect to drug study, so you can omit this thing. So norepinephrine has receptor selectivity of alpha 1, alpha 2 and beta 1, and norepinephrine does not have beta 2 action. Okay, norepinephrine does not have beta 2 action. And there is another catecholamine that is isoproterenol. Isoproterenol has only beta actions. Isoproterenol does not have any alpha action. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you for joining.